another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? I hope you've been enjoying the series and that you're inviting friends to come on over and meet all the fabulous people that I have been interviewing. And I hope you're buying all those books. I'm so pleased to have a wonderful guest today. I'm Karen E. Osborne, in case you're new to the series, author of Getting It Right and my upcoming book, Tangled Lies, which comes out on July 22nd. And my guest today is Dr. Jacqueline Kane. But I know her as Jackie because I've known her since high school. And I'm going to read you a little bit about her book, and then she's going to do all the talking. She's going to tell you all about it. But she's the author of A Real Whole Lot, a World War II soldier's love letters to his wife. And as one reviewer described the book, written with intimacy and humor, A Real Whole Lot reveals how a couple's love not only survived, but blossomed through 4 long, life-threatening years of separation. Doesn't that sound intriguing? Welcome, Jackie.
Hi, Karen. How are you today?
I am awesome today. So
Ooh.
before we get to your book and find out all about the journey and how you found these letters and everything, tell us about some books that you'd like to recommend to our audience.
Mm. Well, my favorite genre is nonfiction narrative. And my two favorites are The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks and The Warmth of Other Suns. So those are two books I would highly recommend. They both of the authors were excellent storytellers and um, acquaint you with a lot of facts and history.
And could you tell us do you know the authors of each book? Could you tell us the, no?
The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. I don't remember the author of that one. I do remember The Warmth of Other Suns. That's Isabel Wilkerson. Isabel Wilkerson has always also recently released another book called Cast. But I wouldn't call that a narrative nonfiction.
Yes, we were just talking about that a minute ago and saying how you had to read it and then take a break and read it because it's very heart-wrenching, isn't it? I mean,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
anger inducing or
I
various
would say all of the above.
the above. Yes, but I too recommend both of her books.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about your writing journey, how you came across these letters. Tell us the story.
Okay, well, my mother was not quite a hoarder, but almost. And her approach to things was that one copy is good, 100 is even better. So my siblings and I had quite a challenge going through my parents' papers after my mother's death. My father predeceased my mother by about 10 years. So we were going through her papers and we discovered these letters. They are V-mail. Most of the letters are V-mail, which was a way in which the government uh, basically it was like Xeroxed letters and then sent them to the service men overseas. And I knew about these and I assumed that they were somewhere in my parents' papers because as a little girl, I played in this closet that had these two large brown paper bags full of these letters. And I asked, what were these? And my mother said, well, these are letters from your father. And I said, oh, okay. Well, as a little person, I didn't know how to read. And, what did I care about these letters? But when we found them again, and only about 200 letters survived because my sister told me that my grandmother had thrown the letters away. And that when my mother discovered this, she discovered it when she was on her way home from work, and the garbage men were reading the letters.
Oh,
My mother, I'm sure, was mortified that these garbage men were reading her letters. And I don't know whether she just grabbed up a few or that my grandmother had missed them or what happened, but That's what happened to the bulk of the letters. And my parents wrote each other every day. So the fact that, as I said, only 200 letters survived is, I don't know. I would say I'm glad that I found them. We found them, but it's also a loss because most of the letters are from my father, not letters to my mother. I mean, from my father to my mother, not from my mother to my father, because of course, my father would have carried them around. And as a matter of fact, there's one letter in the book where he talks about he had over 500 of my mother's letters. He
Wow.
couldn't carry them around anymore, so he burned them. And he says there that he didn't read them again because if he read them again, he wouldn't be able to let them go.
Mm.
So, that was, what happened with a majority of my mother's letters to begin with, that my father left them in ashes. I think in North Africa, because the when he wrote the letter, I'm assuming he was in North Africa, where he was in Algiers and Algeria, Morocco, and was on his way to France, to Marseille, which is where he was last stationed before he came home. So I think at that point, he, as he said, he just couldn't carry the letters around with him anymore.
So, what inspired you to put it into a book? So, you found these beautiful letters, you knew that they existed, and you kind of rediscovered them. And then why a book?
Well, a couple of reasons. One is my siblings and I would tell people how we had found these love letters. And my father signed most of his letters with the phrase, some variation of the phrase, a real whole lot. And so we would share with people, he sent these letters, they were romantic, endearing, etc. And so people said, well, you should publish them. And it was like, so I took it upon myself because I have been involved in organizations where I worked on newsletters and booklets and that kind of thing. And for a period of time, I had a publication that I published annually and sold commercially. So I had some experience with producing documents. And I said, well, all right, well, we'll publish it. So I made arrangements to get it published. I independently published it. And then after I published it, people started having these reactions to it. And I said, well, maybe I should try to sell it. So I embarked upon that. But part of the reason for publishing them is that, we don't, as African Americans, as Black people, we don't have very many tangible examples of Black people expressing love for each other.
Mm.
And here was an opportunity where there was this couple who were newlyweds. They got married in June of 1941. My father got drafted in October of 1941. They were separated pretty consistently until November of 1945. So here they were separated for over 4 years. They ended up being married 66 years. They had 3 children. So we just don't have examples of that. And I wanted to show that there is real Black love with real people. It's not all fiction.
Yeah,
And
yes, what a beautiful story. How long had they known each other before they married?
that as near as I can tell, they met in junior high school. They grew up in Baltimore, which was a segregated city, so they went to segregated schools. My mother and father were a little older because my mother had gotten sick and had to stay out of school for 2 years. And my father was the oldest of 12. And a lot of times in families, they would hold the oldest one back until the second oldest was ready to go to school and they would go to school together.
Mm.
So my father was, I guess you would say, in a way, held back, but not quite in the same way if we think of it now, so that he and his brother could go to school together. So they were both sort of like 2 years behind. And they met up in junior high school and high school. They both worked on the newspaper. They were part of the Negro History Club. My father was this fount of information on Black history. You ask him something, and he would be able to tell you something about Black history that was related to that subject. And so that's how they met. So they were high school sweethearts. Both of them were the oldest in their families. My father, 12, my mother, 4. And they would spend their time in the library. That's where they had their dates, in the library, where they would study. Both of them were top in their class. Both of them were students. They were very, very smart, very resourceful. Kind of just a little side story here. I asked my mother, about a word, and she would say, "Look it up in the dictionary."
Mhm. Exactly right.
Or go to the library and do a little research on that.
So you get your scholarliness honestly.
Yes, yes, yes,
You
yes,
haven't
yes.
earned it honestly.
Hmm.
That is wonderful. Do you have a picture of the cover, or how could our listeners, watchers, be in touch with you?
Well, the best way to be in touch with me is to go to the website, which is www.a real whole lot, all one word. And hopefully, let's see, can we see this?
Yeah, move it a
Yep,
little more.
want
Oh,
to read
perfect,
this book.
perfect. Yeah.
So this is where you would go. There's also a place on the website to contact me. Um, my email address is info@arealwholelot.com.
Excellent. That's
Yes.
wonderful. And are you working on anything else these days?
Well, one of the things that also got found was all the letters I wrote to my mother, my parents, my freshman year in college.
Mm.
So as I haven't read them all, but as I looked through them, I said, "Oh my God, I told my mother all this when I was a freshman."
And now you're going to
You
tell the
know,
world?
well, now it's not such a big deal. I snuck off campus. And or I hung out with so and so. It's like, really? I told my mother all these things? Oh my God. But anyway, so I'm in the process of organizing that. And I was also I guess you would call it a journal writer. Now you would call it journal writing, but I had a diary. So what my intention is to intersperse my diary with the letters. So, you kind of would have a picture of not only what I told my parents, but also a little bit of, actually what was going on in my brain. I have sort of a working title of Letters from Tubman Hall because the dorm I lived in at Morgan State University was called Tubman Hall.
Nice. What a great way to do a memoir.
Yeah.
That's what it'll be. Um,
Yes, yes,
yes,
yes.
that is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for being my guest today. Thank all of you for watching. You know that you just heard how you can reach Jackie, and you can reach me at KarenEOsborne.com. Thanks again, everybody.